Hello, my name is Emily, as you may or may not know, and today we are going to be going through some of your embarrassing moments. A wonderful, expansive topic that allows for the full breadth of I suppose what, anecdotes? It's a pretty general topic for much to explore. I asked you guys to submit your embarrassing stories on my Instagram and on my YouTube community tab. I had to delete my YouTube community post because within a couple of hours, I already had over 1,000 responses. So if your story is included today, just know you kind of beat the odds. Hey, you little statistical anomaly. What a cute pet name. My little statistical anomaly, my outlier. Anyways, before we get into everything, first a word from our lovely sponsor, NoCD. Let me ask you, have you ever replayed a conversation over and over in your head for hours, trying to figure out if you accidentally said something wrong and you just can't remember? Like you get hit with this worry that you could have offended someone or that you accidentally did something inappropriate, and now you're analyzing everything you said, every pause, every facial expression, trying to prove to yourself that everything is okay. That's called mental review, and that can actually be a symptom of OCD, though a lot of people don't know that because OCD is so widely misunderstood. It's not all about just liking things organized, how the stereotypes make it seem. It's a serious condition that shows up through unwanted, intrusive thoughts and the behaviors that you do to try and make the distress from that intrusive thought go away. What makes OCD so tricky is that a lot of its symptoms, like mental review, are invisible and can be quite hard to spot. And OCD can be really debilitating, but with the right kind of knowledge and the right kind of specialized therapy, OCD is highly treatable, so it doesn't have to be that way. Standard talk therapy isn't recommended for OCD and can actually make it worse, but what is recommended is ERP, exposure and response prevention therapy, which was designed specifically for OCD. And that's why I want to tell you about NoCD. NoCD is the world's leading OCD treatment provider, and they accept insurance for over 138 million Americans. All of their licensed therapists are trained specifically in OCD and ERP, and they work with you in live virtual sessions. And in between those sessions, you're not on your own, okay? You can message your therapist, you can join live support groups, or use any of the tools in the NoCD app whenever you feel like you need support. So if any of this sounds familiar, you can go to nocd.com and book a free call with their team to learn more about how NoCD can help. That is nocd.com, link in the description, and thank you so much to NoCD for sponsoring today's video. Okay, sorry, first putting my hair up because it's a little hot. Let me tell an embarrassing story so that you guys don't feel alone, okay? So, once upon a time, if you can even believe it, I was a Girl Scout. And I want to say I stopped when maybe I was around, 10 to 12 years old, something like that. But basically, my Girl Scout troop, we would go on this camping trip. And I can promise you the story is probably not where you think it's going. It's not a putting my hand in the warm water and pissing myself on the bunk bed and suddenly the girl under me is like, is it raining? Right? No, not that. So we were at this cabin, and for some reason, one of the tasks that we had to complete, or something that was on the itinerary, right, was putting up the American flag, flying the American flag in this sort of ceremonious kind of way, where we're walking out in a single file line. It's low-key choreographed. And I was tasked with holding the flag. And one of the parental guardians, who was also sort of the leader of the Girl Scout troop, told me, "This is important. Protect this with your life. This represents our country. It's a matter of respect. It's a matter of we bleed red, white, and blue." And me, the little class clown that I was, trying to be funny, I dropped it on the ground right in front of her. She gave me that spiel, and I was holding it. Let me see if I have, like, an example. Let's pretend that this laughing emoji pillow is the American flag. Hang on. So, she gave me the whole spiel, like, don't drop it. It's a meaning of, like, the patriotism, national anthem, whatever. And this is literally what I do right in front of her face. And I thought it was gonna be a little hee hee ha ha. Nothing of the sort. So honestly, I kind of had my Ariana Grande licking the donut hating America moment quite early in my life. But I wasn't even doing it as an act of protest or resistance, which would have been a little bit more meaningful and cooler, but I was 9. You know, I kind of was really pulling that stunt with the same vibe as when you put a whoopee cushion under somebody. I just wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to bring people together, but people did not laugh. And I think it's one of my earliest memories of kind of doing something wrong in front of a very large group of people and being like, oh, I fucked up the feng shui, huh? But yeah, I basically remember everyone really just like looking at me, and I felt so deeply embarrassed. And then after that, we set up the flag, and in a very meek voice, I said the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, now time for your guys' stories, the main event. High school math class, I gained the nickname Shoe. Sorry, let me deliver that better. High school math class, I gained the nickname Shoe. I could not solve a math equation and I started crying. The teacher asked me to step outside. While walking to the front, I tripped over a table leg and my shoe flew off my foot adjacent to the way I fell. I then had to collect my shoe while hopping. Why did I hop? Just walk normally to get it. From the back of the classroom, only to then lose my other shoe on the way there and hold both of my shoes in my arms like my children that had been dug from under a pile of rubble and exit. Tears still streaming down my face. People then drew shoes on whiteboards to wave at me before entering every class. This was so embarrassing, I willingly moved down class sets to avoid this. I now detest ballet flats. First of all, I am so sorry that happened to you, and I'm wishing you much love and happiness, because crying over not understanding a math concept is a very vulnerable, visceral thing. VVV. That's the sort of thing that is most ideal in the home. Crying due to academic frustration in front of your peers in a classroom setting, that will leave you feeling more exposed than if you were a nude model for a communal figure sketching class. And also, I want to say, I'm sorry for your loss. Your shoe. The imagery, I don't mean to laugh, the imagery of you with tears streaming down your face, losing your shoe, hopping to go get it, which is lovely, bringing in a spirit of hopscotch into the classroom, which we are ever so grateful for, but then doing that only to lose your other shoe. Losing the second shoe was a test from God. That was someone upstairs was looking down on that situation and said, let me put a little cherry on top. Also, it's unfortunate that shoe became your nickname, not only because it's a constant reminder of this event, but it also could feel like people are telling you to go away. Hey, shoe. Shoe. I'll close off with this concept that I hope did not happen to you. Your peers could have sang the song, Shoe Fly, Don't Bother Me, and they wouldn't have had to change any of the lyrics, and it still would have been applicable to your situation. And for that, I'm so sorry. In the first grade, I was sitting with my friend after school when I farted, and he asked, what was that? I responded, a rocket. And he was like, oh, okay. I still know him to this day, and he's never questioned me once about it. Sorry, I know this isn't really embarrassing besides farting, but I've been dying to tell someone about this since the prehistoric ages. But you know, that's honestly a really great tactic. I think that's something that I'm going to take with me into the future. The next time I audibly fart and the person has this type of response, what was that? I'm going to say, NASA's mission is now underway. You know, it's a little bit more creative than saying that was my shoe, or hey, call back, that was my shoe, or, you know, that was my chair, because then you get into this sticky situation where they ask you to recreate the sound, and then all of a sudden, it's like somehow, although it's physically impossible, all points of friction that could possibly recreate the sound have gone away. All of a sudden, now the floor is covered in baby oil, and now my shoe can't recreate the sound. But when you say, that was a rocket, what do they expect you to do? Launch it again? I'm not the government. I'm not in charge of that. I was talking about what I learned about microorganisms to my parents, talking fast, and said microorganism really confidently. I was 18 and fulfilled an ancient Tumblr post. Someone find it. Anyway, good luck with your debut short film. Rooting for you. Peace and love. Now, honestly, listen, this is a rite of passage. Okay? Mixing up the words organism and orgasm when you were younger, That's, according to my mental calculations that are completely unfounded, if you didn't experience that, you'd be in the minority. I know in these contexts, it's usually people saying orgasm instead of organism. You know, orgasms at the bottom of the ocean don't need direct sunlight. Something like that. But I think it would also be cool if we could do the reverse. Like, oh my god, last night I had the most toe curling organism. And the other person is like, what, like a sloth? I got into a car accident. I was the only one involved. Landed in the ditch on the highway. I was not hurt. Sorry, that's not funny. I'm very sorry that happened.
Slapping down some pig shit with these fat fucks, and I'm the fattest of them all.
Joyride by Kesha was playing really freaking loudly from my phone. For a good minute or so, I was sitting in shock, trying to gather myself while Kesha was on the speakers, revving her engine till you make it purr. That must be the lyrics, right? And then I had to pull myself together and turn off the radio so the police officer who arrived to help wouldn't have to listen to all that. Who knows, maybe he would appreciate it. Fierce is fierce, honey. First of all, I am sorry that happened. That sounds very, very scary. But it sounds like no one else was around to witness it, so at least I don't think it's that embarrassing, right? And if anything, it's a little bit iconic. No one was hurt, including you. And you got to listen to Joyride while experiencing a car accident. I mean, it's not really a positive thing, but it is kind of just like ironic. It's like listening to I Believe I Can Fly while you're experiencing extreme airplane turbulence. I guess it's really only funny in hindsight, because otherwise in the moment you're probably just thinking, oh, I could have just died. But I hope that you can listen to Kesha without any trauma, because a lot of her songs are a recipe for a good time as opposed to a car accident. I was going to do a fart spray prank on my sister, but with the adrenaline I was having, I didn't realize the spray part was facing me, and I sprayed it on my mouth. Unfortunately, that's probably karma, and maybe a lesson in navigating this world with kindness, which I'm sure you are more than capable of doing. Me acting like a therapist right now. And I'm sure that lesson felt very tangible, because the idea of spraying fart spray into your own mouth, I imagine that's pretty scarring. I would even almost say life-altering, because fart sprays are kind of the antithesis to perfumes and colognes. You know those screenshots of people misspelling cologne and they say, love the smell of his colon. When you're using fart spray, it's actually not a typo. It's quite applicable. I wonder if, you know how perfumes have top notes of sandalwood, vanilla, lavender. Fart sprays should also have top notes of sulfur, egg, disease. I love the way this one starts. Mom found the naked paintings. ... It wasn't even bad, just someone in the sun in their purest form, for a metaphor or whatever. But my mom was going through my stuff while I wasn't home. She's really religious and traditional, so she sat me down and was like, your painting made me want to cry. Not even in a positive, moved way. Just crying because she was in so much horror at a painting that wasn't even trying to be sexual. Anyways, it's fine because she forgets things like a day later. Love your videos. Yeah, I can definitely understand how that would feel embarrassing, but at the end of the day, you weren't doing anything but creating art. And that's never embarrassing. Well, sometimes it is. There's some forms of art where I won't lie, sometimes, yes, there are certain forms of art that do go over my head a little bit. It's kind of like performance art stuff where, someone, let me think of an example. Like to represent birth and connection to the earth, someone slathers themselves in like raspberry jelly to look like they have just emerged from the amniotic sac of their mother, and they're like chewing on a raw duck liver to like resemble the placenta, like something like that. I would feel a little bit shy and embarrassed doing something like that, I will admit. But when people get all up in arms over a pair of tits, it's like, honey, look down, right? The call's coming from inside the house. But keep doing art, keep painting naked people, because guess what? Fabric is hard to paint. I honestly think if I were an artist, I like to draw. If I were like an artist for my career, maybe I would specialize in naked people. I wouldn't even be doing it in the way of like I want to represent people in their purest form. I want to, showcase the vulnerability, the skin to skin contact. It's more like, I didn't know how to paint this maxi skirt in the wind. So I'm just going to paint this person naked and just like tilt their pubes a little bit this way to show that there's like a breeze or something. First time I went to the gym, I did 10 minutes on the Stairmaster and threw up all over the gym. Haven't been back. Although that is embarrassing, sure, yes, you should be proud of yourself for getting to the goddamn gym in the first place. Because going to the gym is sometimes one of the hardest things you can do. And one of the easiest things you can do is not go. And at least you didn't throw up while running on the treadmill. Because the Stairmaster has this sort of slow kind of rotation. If you're running on the treadmill, depending on how fast you're running, that could turn into a slip and slide situation real fast. But so you don't feel alone, one of my first times at the gym, I was running on the treadmill kind of like faster than the speed that I had set it at. So I was really like kind of like close to the front of the treadmill. My toe went off of the track and clipped the front. I almost ate shit to such, I almost stuffed my face in the mud pie is how much I almost ate shit. That situation could have been so bad that it would not have even been funny. It just would have been a liability for whoever was working that day. And I distinctly remember dramatically catching myself and making a big kind of like clunky noise. I'm shifting the foundations of the building, right? And then I remember looking around me, because there's people around me. I remember looking around me and going, what the fuck? As if someone else had done it to me. This one still haunts me. I'm currently in my late 20s, but in high school, my parents once discovered my sexy texts with them girlfriend. They, them, girlfriend? Whatever. The parents printed the texts out and everything to confront me. My dad works in IT, so he's not a typical clueless boomer when it comes to technology. I sobbed when they did and apologized profusely. Being lesbian and Catholic did not help my case. Anyways, I was grounded for 2 months and they took my phone and gave me my old iPod Nano back so I could still listen to music on the bus. Anyways, big fan of your videos and good luck on the movie. Aw, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm so sorry. When you are S-texting, let's call it that, S-texting. I'm sex positive. Positive that sex is disgusting. No, I'm sex positive, but there is a certain shame that comes with rereading those types of messages because it's sort of like, that's not me. That was me in a state where the little devil on my shoulder took over the rest of my body. Rereading those types of messages is almost like seeing Instagram stories of yourself when you were drunk and you're like, oh my God, did I say that? And then having a physical print of those messages displayed to you by your parents, almost like you're a guest star on Criminal Minds and you're being interrogated. I just felt a shiver down my spine thinking about that. That is truly a situation I would never want to be in. I feel like the only way that you could be kind of safe in a situation like that is if you're the type of person who texts with like a bunch of abbreviations. So when your parents see a text that says like, why are you texting someone, I want a EYP? And then that's when you can say, I was saying that I want to eat your persimmons. I love persimmons. Don't you know that? Hi. A while ago, I accidentally said fierce and gorgeous very casually in a conversation with my mother before I told her that I'm gay. I still haven't. She just looked at me and frowned, but I think she knows. Well, a part of me hope she knows, because then otherwise she seems a little bit too comfortable with her straight child saying a gay slur. Her not correcting you can either read as an apathy towards homophobia or she's clocking you. She's clocking you and she's thinking to herself internally, well, who am I not to tell my gay child not to say the word, if they want to reclaim it. This reminds me of this time that I almost accidentally, very casually in passing said, oh my God, that's so cunt, in front of my mom. And I literally had to stop myself and be like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool. And then my mom was like, are you good? What's wrong? I said I had a tickle in my throat. Okay, about my embarrassing moment. I was at a party and we were doing charades and I got Gollum. So I started acting like Gollum, like talking and stuff. I know we're not supposed to talk because it's charades. But the game basically ended after that because nobody laughed or reacted. And I just excused myself to the bathroom to come back and find my friends laughing at a video of me being Gollum. I kind of quickly left after that. Your friends are kind of fake for that. If your friend does a Gollum impression, if you care about this person, you need to react. Because doing a Gollum impression for a party is in a similar vein of, crying while doing math. It's very vulnerable, and I need your support. And although this wasn't the case, the only way I could find something like this being okay is if it was your goal with the Gollum impression to silence the room. Because sometimes I tell a joke knowing that it's not going to elicit laughs, but rather discomfort and silence. And that's kind of my goal. Like sometimes your friend having no reaction to the joke is a part of the joke. But in this case, I just don't think that is what the situation was. And I'm sorry you had to go through that because I really am picturing the worst case scenario in my head, which kind of goes a little bit like this. That's pretty brutal. I pissed myself when I was out on the sunroof, and when my grandmother asked why water was dripping, I told her it was rain. And then she asked me why the rain was only dripping on her. And then she saw my tights, heartbroken emoji. Bro, my family has this as an inside joke, and they will not let it go. I was like 7, by the way. Oh my god, I know what I'm about to say is not true, but it sounds like you were the originator of the phrase, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I honestly think that there's a certain bravery in telling a lie that makes absolutely no sense. I was once in your shoes, as a matter of fact. Let me tell you a similar sinister tale. I was probably around the same age as you, and I was running amok at recess, causing havoc where now this is a little side note, but I used to have this hypothetical world in my head called Puppy Playtown. And it was basically, I would play with my friends and we would all pretend to be puppies. Anyways, I don't know what happened in the events leading up to this sort of big kahunga, but I pissed myself. Not a tinkle, not a sprinkle, but to full release. Someone turned the faucet on. I don't remember if a recess aide went up to me or if I went up to them, but I ended up going to the nurse to get a new pair of pants. And when she asked me what happened, I said, I fell in a puddle. And even after all these years, I can tell you with 100% certainty that the sun was shining and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. So she knew that I was lying. The only puddle that I would have been able to fall in is the puddle that I made of my own piss. And then I remember the school nurse, God bless her heart, she just said, okay. And then she gave me a new pair of sweatpants. And I remember they had paint stains on the crack. So really, I just say this to state solidarity with those who have gone through something similar. Next one. Okay, another piss related. I went to get a drug test done because I wanted to volunteer somewhere. Hashtag clinical hours. And my I'm gonna say ass. And my dumb ass went like an hour before they closed, having drank like 2 small cups of water. I couldn't pee enough in the freaking cup, so I had to chug a bunch of water and try again, and I still couldn't pee enough, so they had to call the org and be like, hey, your volunteer can't void. And it takes too many resources for the org to get another prescription for that, so that was months of onboarding gone to urinary retention. Bye. Losing a volunteer because they couldn't void. We've all been there. Just in case you guys didn't know this, every time you volunteer for something, you have to void first. So for example, if someone says, let me get that door for you, you say, piss. Piss now or don't volunteer to do things for me. Now, I might be projecting, but I really don't think that most people are hitting that threshold of 8 cups of water a day. However, if you know that you have a urine test coming up, you'll get pretty close. Now, obviously, unfortunately, this wasn't the case for you, but when I know I have a urine test coming up, I start drinking water like I need it to survive, which I do. But you would think in the way that I move in my day-to-day life that it wasn't a necessity to me. You would think that the doctor was recommending, the National Public Health Organization was recommending 1 to 2 cups of some sort of boba drink, a chai, some sort of you know what? Let's make it broad. The National Health Organization recommends 1 to 2 cups of a fun beverage. I do feel that I might be chronically dehydrated, and honestly, the way to fix that is maybe just treat my life as one big urinalysis. And then maybe every day I'll be drinking enough water. My partner and I had a threesome, and the girl was so loud but couldn't figure out how to keep her quieter, and we got a noise complaint. I don't know if it was about her for sure, but it gave me so much anxiety as it was happening, because how do you respectfully make someone stop hooting and hollering like that? Ooh, yeah, that's uncomfortable. Because there is a little bit of a performance aspect when it comes to S, especially if there's 2 other people there. I mean, when it comes to that activity, that's a pretty full house. And it is a little uncomfy, because when you can tell someone is giving it their all, you don't want to dull their shine. You don't want to dim their sparkle, right? If someone is going out of their way to hit the high note and you change the song, they might feel a little bummed. Okay, I wonder, okay, if you're ever in this situation, maybe you and your partner can say, shut the fuck up. No, you can say, my partner and I have this kink where we like to be under 80 decibels. Isn't that so sexy? Or I think one of the sexiest things for us as a couple is being reasonable. You know that saying, oh, the neighbors are gonna hear my name? They don't have to. We've been acquainted, and even if we haven't, the neighbors don't need to know my name at all. I'm against building community. On the bright side, I do think the situation is probably more embarrassing for the third, because if I were in her shoes and then after I left, like picturing the couple, closing the door, and then they both look at each other and they're thinking to themselves, or they say out loud to each other, thank God the human fire alarm is gone. Ooh. But I totally get where you're coming from. And honestly, when someone is kind of doing the whole, bold, boisterous, Broadway bust down, even outside of not wanting to disturb those around you, there's also an aspect of like, can you just be real with me right now? I don't want you to be doing all this if it's not authentic. It's just sex, not a lung capacity test. Hi, Emily. First off, I want to say I love watching your videos so much. Anyway, here's my embarrassing moment. So my cousin and I, for some context, he is a male, we're taking Instagram photos at this really nice resort, and I was wearing a backless top, so I was wearing pasties. And it was so genuinely hot outside, and the humidity was bad. So while I was posing and having a moment and just like serving face, it fell on the ground. Oh my God. And when I tell you, I picked it up so quickly and told him, we need to go. And everything happened so fast, because he was like, wait, what fell? And I said, oh, my necklace, but it broke. And I'm pretty sure he knew deep down it was for the nips. And it was so embarrassing. Oh my God. Sometimes when it pops back into my head, I can't sleep at night. The idea of having something akin to a thinly sliced chicken breast fall out of your shirt and then saying, oh, that was my necklace. Like, I'm pretty sure when necklaces fall, they don't kersplat. Just to really sell that version of the story to your cousin, you should have shown up to the family dinner that night with a nipple pasty pendant. Then when you're leaning over to eat your spaghetti, some marinara gets on your necklace, and all of a sudden it looks like a raw chicken Parmesan. Or when you lean down, the pasty pendant suctions to the plate, and then when you rise and get back up, it's like you're playing a flip cup with your entree. Because that definitely would have made things less embarrassing. Next one. I would tell you, but I got too embarrassed thinking about it. Real. Next one again. My ex-boyfriend begged me to send him a picture of my dick, probably thinking that I was hung as a Texan rhinoceros. And then when I sent him it, he ghosted me. Ghosted after a nude is brutal. That's pretty brutal. But as tough as that is, I guess I'd rather be ghosted than receive a sincere negative reply. Like if they were to have sent back just disappointed, period. Or just received. And the fact that he was so enthusiastically asking for it beforehand, it's kind of just the cherry on top, unfortunately, you know? I was begging for a piece of cheesecake, but then once the cheesecake was presented to me, let's just say my hand wasn't going toward the fork. Also, I'm sorry, this was your boyfriend? You guys were in you were in a formal relationship and there was no actual breaking up process. He just never spoke to you again and just let the photo speak for itself. I mean, sometimes a photo is worth 1,000 words. Other times it's just a picture of a maybe his phone broke and that's why he didn't reply. Honestly, I would suggest printing out a physical copy of the photo and then sending it to his house via snail mail. Or maybe even better yet, you find him in a public place, kind of corner him, and then hand him the photo in person and start recording him, and you ask him, what do you think? What's the verdict? What's the verdict? So let me know how that goes. Next one. Okay, guys, warning, if you don't like throw up, you might not enjoy this story. I got a fishbowl cocktail at the club once, drank it way too quickly, and proceeded to throw up in the bowl. I hadn't eaten, so my sick looked like the drink. That sounds very British. I hadn't eaten, so my sick looked like the drink. 10 minutes later, my friend asks for a sip. I give her the bowl, and she gags from the smell when it gets near her. Ended the night by being carried out of the club by security, and I threw up on the guy too. Not my finest moment. I'm just glad that your friend could kind of smell the situation before she tasted it. Because that is actually god-awful. Also, I'm sorry, but the concept of ordering a fishbowl cocktail on an empty stomach. I don't even take a shot on an empty stomach. And I'm sorry, I know that this is not the situation, but I had a vision of someone on a date where who they're with orders and goes, you know, I'll have just like an espresso martini. And then you go, I will have the Tsunami Thunder Fishbowl Challenge drink. Just for me, though. My landlord came over unexpectedly and I had just gotten out of the shower, so I put clothes on quickly and went to go talk to her. But after she left, I realized that the PJ pants I was wearing had a rip down the middle of the butt. So I was walking around with my bare butt out in front of my landlord. Honestly, knowing how landlords operate, they would probably be more ready to address that crack than one in the ceiling. A rip right down the middle of the butt really is insane work because God knows that's where I need the fabric the most. I'm really surprised that you didn't feel a draft, but then again, I wonder, medical professionals, comment down below because they didn't teach us this in nursing school. If the crack is a little less susceptible, it has less nerve endings or is a little less sensitive, right? Because while I'm sitting here thinking to myself, dang, how were you able to have your, crack out on the Jumbotron and you didn't even notice? Meanwhile, there's people who do that every day and not even in the privacy of their own homes, out in the world where, they're sitting somewhere hunched over eating their vegetarian, soy bowl, whatever, and their crack actually, I just made a judgment in my head. I was literally just about to say someone who was eating a vegetarian soy bowl wouldn't be the type of person to have their ass crack out when they're bent over. What does that say about me? Because when I'm imagining someone ass crack out, not giving a care in the world, I'm imagining them eating maybe like a pulled pork sandwich, ribs, something like that. Interesting. I ran a Chickle Little fan page. I assume they mean Chicken Little. Chicken Little fan page on Pinterest. And I would tell people to electric chair themselves under comments of people fetishizing K-pop members. But then my phone kept giving me notifications of continue looking for hot men or just men. And my parents saw them and I assume they blocked Pinterest on my phone after that. I had time limits. There's a lot to unpack here. Receiving death threats from a Chicken Little fan page on Pinterest. That's a sentence I never thought I would say. I guess I'm glad that there's somebody out there keeping the Chicken Little fandom alive, even if it is, most of the activity is telling people to kill themselves. Chicken Little would still be proud. she said confidently. It would also be interesting if your parents blocked Pinterest from your phone not because you were looking up hot men, but because they found out you were sending death threats. Who knows? Maybe one of your parents had a secret K-pop fan account page and you told them to off themselves. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe it's a thing where your parents are operating from the mindset of, I can excuse hot shirtless Asian men, but I draw the line at commenting, Jungkook will never love you, walk into the ocean and never return. In 5th grade, I broke my front tooth on a chicken nugget. I got up and started screaming. Excuse me. Screaming, crying, boogers coming out and running around, and the cafeteria was dead silent until people started laughing at me. I was like crying in my teacher's arms in front of everyone and lost all my friends because they were embarrassed to be with me after that. The whole school thought I was weird. Every time I would get into an argument, someone would always bring it up and threaten me with chicken nuggets. I will never forget. First of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you. We need a counter for me saying, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you in this video, because I definitely said it at least 4 or 5 times. Second of all, what kind of chicken nuggets were they serving you guys that you were able to break your front tooth on it? I mean, I know that you were in 5th grade, but you should have sued. In my experience, cafeteria chicken nuggets are often so mushy to the point where you even question if it's meat. Cafeteria chicken nuggets, I'm taking a bite and I don't even want to look at what's inside because it feels like it's not my business. And I'm sorry that people would use your trauma against you and threaten you with chicken nuggets. Because also, how long did this go on for? Because if this happened in 5th grade, right? It's like, okay, give me a break. We're going to be juniors in high school in speech and debate class talking about the death penalty, and then you're going to end every sentence with, yeah, that's right, you little chicken nugget bitch. I accidentally dropped my very used tampon on the floor in a public restroom, and the person in the stall next to me laughed. I also had to wash my hands in front of them. Ridding yourself of the shame. I'm trying to think, what are some things that you can say to someone who just dropped their used tampon next to you so that they don't feel as mortified? Maybe something like, nice work, you made that all yourself? Or, nice flow, I wish mine was that heavy. Or, juicy. I don't know, maybe you could have followed in the footsteps of the pasties girl and say it was your necklace. I'm sure somewhere out there, there is a very, artsy, connected to the earth type of person who they, took their used tampon and dipped it in resin and then wore it as a necklace or something. When I giggled in front of my crush and snot came out of my nose. Okay, guys, this is the last one. I wanted to do the hanky-panky with my ex-boyfriend / situationship so he would love me again. That's your first mistake. The day we had it scheduled, his dog literally died. We had scheduled it in a bomb shelter. Bomb emoji. Bomb emoji, dog emoji, grave emoji. R.I.P. dog. I was really pissed off you died because I wanted Dick Van Dyke. Okay, so there's a little bit to unpack here. First of all, I hate to say it, but sex won't necessarily make someone love you. It will just make them feel like they have access to your body. But really, that's the least interesting part of this story. A bomb shelter. I don't really feel like that's the most romantic of vibes. But also, I guess in these post-apocalyptic situations where people are going to be spending a lot of time in these bomb shelters, my guess is that people would be having sex because there's jack shit else to do. We've already done all the jigsaw puzzles. I've solved this Rubik's Cube like 42 times at this point. I guess, should we just like each other? And I guess thinking about hookups with a sort of post-apocalyptic vibe, A Quiet Place, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt were having sex to the point that she got pregnant. And that's kind of the worst hookup environment imaginable. So I guess a bomb shelter isn't the worst, but it's also not the best. Maybe the dog heard about what your guys' plans were, and they thought to themselves, I have to intervene. So they died. I do have to say that a beloved pet dying is a pretty bad boner killer. And I do appreciate that your attitude towards it seems to be, that dog should have lived for at least another 20 minutes. because I thought that we were going to Pound Town, and it turns out that we're taking a detour towards your backyard to bury your dog. Anyways, I'm done. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. We can definitely do a part 2. Like I said, I literally got over 1,000 responses. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a fun day. It's very hot today. I don't know if it will be hot on the day that this comes out, but I guess I hope that you can have like a slushie or a smoothie or an acai bowl, something like that. All right. Well, that's all really. Until next time.